Coakley, DelDOT staff, who's going to give us a presentation and update, along with Mr. Whitehouse, on the transportation improvement districts in Sussex County. Thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of Council. If I could, for the Roxana section of the presentation, if I can hand out just these paper copies, it might assist, but we have a slide for it too. Ms. Coakley is going to start with an update on TIDs. County Council may remember this from 2020, when the county adopted and created its first TID, which is a Transportation Improvement District, which was the Henlopen TID. Ms. Coakley is here today to provide some updates on that Transportation Improvement District, along with some additional information and updates on potential new TIDs, including the Roxana TID.
Thanks. Yes, so today I'm going to go over some TID basics. I know it's been a few years, I think, since I've been down here. I know we worked together, the county and DelDOT, a lot to develop the Henlopen TID, and now that it's been in operation, we continue to work together. We have been having regular monthly meetings to update each other on fee receipts, verify agreements, and process them, and just otherwise keep each other up to date and coordinate on the TID. But I also wanted to give you some more detailed updates on what the Henlopen TID is looking like, and then, like Jimmy said, get into reviewing the Roxana area, and then talking about Milton TID potentially. Yep. So you may be wondering what a TID is. So basically it's an area where local government and DelDOT have agreed to do more comprehensive, detailed planning. So basically the local government does a detailed parcel level land use forecast, and then DelDOT models that in order to determine the actual traffic impacts of that land use forecast. And then jointly we come up with a list of the needed transportation improvements in that district, along with a funding mechanism to fund them. And that includes a developer contribution that varies between 20 and 50%. For Henlopen, we're at 24%. And then basically the rest of the funding would come from the state or federal dollars to fund the transportation improvements. But basically it's that area that we jointly agree to create and work on. And it basically replaces the need for an individual traffic impact study for developments that come in consistent with the land use forecast for that district. Yeah, thanks. So there's lots of benefits for doing a TID. So in addition to the comprehensive infrastructure planning, which basically means like we know what improvements we're going to need in that TID area ahead of time instead of waiting for individual TISs to be done. The projects advance in our capital transportation program quicker. So basically we have a 6-year funding program that actually funds our transportation improvements and allocates state, local, federal funding for our transportation improvements, and projects that are in TIDs get extra points in that prioritization process. They also can get extra points for the local prioritization. So there's basically like two kind of potential areas where TID projects can get extra points, and so they do tend to rank higher. In our last CTP ranking, the TID projects ranked really well. Also, the TID fees stay local since they're basically a transportation impact fee replacing a TIS. They can only be used for projects in that TID. And then it helps developers to know what they will have to do ahead of time rather than doing a TIS. Also, a lot of people don't know that it can take 6 to 9 months to do and have a TIS reviewed. So then that's time off the development process that developers don't have to do if they're developing consistent with a TID. So this map is showing the Henlopen TID. This was approved and began implementation in October of 2020. And it's our largest TID currently in operation. And the approximate costs of the improvements that we've agreed to work on are $311 million, with the developers expected to contribute about 24% of that. And I'm going to get into numbers that show how much fees we've collected, but about a third of the projects in terms of costs are actually already included in both our current capital transportation program and our proposed. So right now we're working on our fiscal year 25 to 30 proposed CTP. So in that one we've added a couple additional projects, but between both of those CTPs, a third of them are in there. So we're not waiting until the TID fund gets up to a certain amount to start projects in the TID. We're front loading things, and we're fronting state and federal funding to get a head start, so that the projects will, keep up with the actual development in the TID. So we've had 22 agreements signed. So each developer that comes in that's going to participate in the TID signs an agreement documenting that, and that gets recorded. And that's up from 8 this time last year. Another 9 are in process. About $1 million in developer contributions have been collected, and got another payment of 100,000 some yesterday. And then another 341,000 in developer right-of-way dedication or construction commitments. So sometimes DelDOT will ask a developer to make the improvements along their frontage, especially if there's a safety concern or issue. So for some of these developments, we had them dedicate additional right-of-way beyond what they would normally be required to do. And then they actually are doing some of their frontage improvements as well. Not their entrance. Their entrance is on their own, and their turn lanes are on their own. But frontage improvements beyond that, they get a credit toward their TID fees for doing that work. And then even though the TID was approved at the end of 2020, it was based on a land use forecast that was done in the middle of 2018. So in our agreement, we committed to doing an update in 2023 just to make sure that the land use forecast was still valid, and that the improvements that we had identified and agreed upon are still going to be adequate. And they are, which is great, but I just want to go over that process a little bit. So what we did for this was we took the 2045 projections from the original TID study, and then we just added the increases in land use. So anything that was in the 2018 land use forecast already was not adjusted. That stayed the same, but we just added in the increases, the incremental increase. So from 2018 to what was expected in 2023. And then we reran the analysis using Synchro TIA software to verify that the Henlopen TID improvements are still adequate, and they are, which is great. That means we built enough cushion into the original modeling for them to be adequate. And we ran this based on by right developments, so basically the existing underlying zoning. And then I think there were a couple of developments. I'll show a map on the next slide, but that submitted conditional use applications as well, but they were still within that threshold. And so the agreement basically says that the threshold for determining consistency with the land use forecast is the same as the threshold for determining whether they're going to do a TIS or not. So it's 50 peak hour trips or 500 daily trips is what triggers an individual traffic impact study from a developer not in a TID. And so that same threshold is what we use to calculate whether a development is consistent with the TID land use forecast or not. So, yep, next slide. So this is the original parcel-specific land use forecast for the Henlopen TID. And so it included everything in there, with the purple being non-residential, the yellow being residential units, and then kind of the darker red being a mix, and about 13,000 new single-family detached units and 1.5 million square feet of non-residential. And then we also included background growth outside of the TID. So this is what was included in the original 2018 modeling. And then if you can go to the next slide.
Sure. And on that note of the 2018 modelling, this was a joint effort between the county and DelDOT, and was subject to a public workshop back in 2019, was it? Prior to council adopting the TID, there was a tremendous amount of input that went into the creation of this. So.
Yep. And so this is showing the update that we did and what kind of parcels and developments were included in it. So these in green are the parcels that have come in with development applications, at least to DelDOT, that have been slightly higher than what was included in the land use forecast. And they're all by right developments. I know there's a couple rezonings that you probably noticed are not on there. They are above the threshold, so they're going to actually be required to do their own TIS, traffic impact study, and make additional improvements beyond the TID. But the TID itself is in really great shape, which is great news. So I wanted, while I was here, to give an update on the transportation improvements, since, a third of them are in our CTP. So design, PE means preliminary engineering or design, is underway for a number of projects. So the airport road extension, the part from Old Landing Road to State Route 24, also the part of the US 9 widening from Old Vine Road to Route 1. And then Plantations Road, obviously Phase 1 is under construction and Phase 2 is in design. And then we picked up again with the intersection of Old Landing Road and Warrington. And then now that's on hold again, pending the completion of some of these other projects, to see how the completion of these other projects impact traffic. Like the department will want to get traffic counts in the area before we move forward with that again after these improvements are done. Shady Road and Postal Lane improvements and Mulberry Knoll Road extension. They've been added to the out years of our capital transportation programs to start design. And then for the most recent CTP, which is still proposed at this point, it hasn't been approved yet, but is going through the approval process. Route 9 widening from Old Vine Road out to Dairy Farm Road, and then a study of State Route 24 between Love Creek Bridge and Indian Mission Road. Those are proposed to be added and included in that CTP for the out years. We're also working together, the county and DelDOT, to implement the Southeast Sussex study in the Roxana area, and we'll talk more about that. But I did want to note that on the main DelDOT website now, we have this TID Dashboard. And if you go to the next slide, Jamie, so you can actually zoom in to each TID and click on the improvements there, and it'll give you the status of them, along with how much they cost. And the goal is to keep this updated like every quarterly, basically every 3 months. But it's a good way of getting information on the projects in your districts or in TIDs.
Over to me. So we wanted to, if we could, Mr. President, provide a very brief overview of the potential Roxana TID. I say potential because it hasn't been approved yet and it hasn't been subject to public workshops. But the conversations have started between the county and DelDOT as to what would a TID look like, what would its area look like. So we started with a study area, and this study area extends all the way in the southeast quadrant of the county, as you wish, and from the Delaware, from the state line all the way up to the inland bays, including those areas where we think we might see potential growth out to 2050. So this area is about 26.5 miles, and we identified those parcels and established a methodology of where we might see development. And I'm pleased to report that once we establish the area, and when you draw a boundary for a TID, you don't want to select roads as the boundaries, because then you'll have one side in the TID and one side not in the TID. So we did our very best to use natural features, water features, to identify TID boundaries or municipality boundaries to avoid having that phenomenon where you have one side in and one side out. So we ended up with a study area that was about 26.5 miles, but a lot of parcels in that study area were already developed or already contain areas that are subject to wetlands and could not be developed. And we were able to identify about 2,800 parcels, and we were able to study those and generate some estimates of the amount of housing and the amount of commercial that we might see in these areas out to 2050. And in conjunction with DelDOT, this particular slide shows all the intersections within the study area. So how it works is that the county has generated a land use forecast, and DelDOT has generated an analysis of all the intersections in those areas. There's a lot of math involved in terms of establishing a methodology, but I'm pleased to report that with this particular TID, the county staff have generated the land use forecast entirely in-house in consultation with DelDOT. So we avoided the need to go out to external consultants, and we saved DelDOT having to use their external consultants. And we were able to generate this graphic, which shows where we think we'll be able to see some housing growth out to 2050. It's preliminary. It hasn't been subject to public workshops yet. That comes further in the process. So it's our preliminary estimates, but we believe we have some estimates on how much housing and how much commercial we could see out to 2050, and that then informs the trips which DelDOT uses to calculate the contributions that developers are going to have to make. As I said before, there's a lot of math in TIDs, Mr. President, and I won't bore you with the details of the math, but we have that available if anyone has an interest. So.
Sure. A couple questions. Sure. How does this impact areas that are designated as investment level 4? Because there are some, in fact, and I want to say this is a lot bigger than what I envisioned when we first requested this, which, thank you. I mean, that's good. But you've got areas that are, level 4. So I'm wondering if the state planning office is going to get involved with this and disagree with some of the things we're trying to accomplish here.
And it's a good question, Mr. Rieley. There is some interplay. So if a parcel is in state investment level 4, there's potentially a reason why it's in level 4, i.e. it's encompassed by wetlands. For example, our study has factored in parcels that are suspected or known to have wetlands on the parcel, and we've discounted those parcels or reduced the number. So if a parcel is covered by wetlands, our GIS software was able to calculate what the yield is on a particular parcel based on the amount of wetlands on the parcel. So the answer is there would be a correlation between state investment levels and these numbers, not directly, but indirectly because of factors like wetlands. Is the answer.
Like for instance, up in the north corner there, you can see there's land that's in the blue, like TID draft boundary, but then there's no actual like parcel there showing.
Right.
So that would be an example of that where there's no, it's technically included in the boundary because we wouldn't want to just draw the boundary around the individual parcels up there. It's easier just to use the creek that's there as the boundary, but it's not like factored in the land, like the wetlands are factored out of the land use forecast.
I know that some areas of Route 17, for example, are investment level 4 that appear to be in this. So I just, wondering, I don't want to get into, areas where we have other agencies resisting our efforts,
That's a good question, Mr. Rieley. If there are factors on the parcels that limit its potential for residential commercial development out to 2050, then we can factor that in. We also have the public input factor as well. That this hasn't been publicly workshopped yet, and we receive a great deal of intel from the public as to what aspirations are for parcels. So this is just very, very much a preliminary analysis that informs future analysis. So.
Are municipalities close to this TID area? Are they consulted on, what their vision is of growth in the area?
So another good question, Mr. Chair. But we've actually tried our very best to draw the boundaries around municipalities, but I believe we'll have to work with Selbyville a little bit. But they will certainly be involved in the consultation process as we move forward. So.
Sorry, good. Keep on going.
Sure.
So next steps for the Roxana TID is for DelDOT to collect updated traffic counts, which we're going to do this spring, and then work on modeling the traffic impacts of the land use forecast. And then we jointly work on agreeing on that list of transportation improvements and conduct public outreach. So we'll probably want to conduct several public workshops or public meetings on this effort at various stages of the process, rather than like just waiting and conducting one at the end. It would be preferable to do a few throughout the process. But basically, we need to work together to finalize the list of improvements and the infrastructure fee program and monitoring program. And I'm hoping we can do all this in a year and a half. It'd be nice if we could do it quicker, but just with our workload and trying to do more of it in-house, 18 months is probably the quickest that we would be able to actually have a agreement ready to present to you all. So for the Milton TID, so right now the town and DelDOT have an agreement that basically says that we're going to develop a TID in the Milton area, and this map here shows the boundary with the black line being the border, and then the purple are the segments, and then the green are the intersections. And we obtained updated traffic counts last year in both March and July for Summer Saturday. Go to the next slide. And the boundaries right now are based on the town of Milton's growth area, which is that map on the bottom right, and their annexation area, and then also the Sussex County future land use map. Basically, it's like those two areas overlaid on each other, and then both are included in the TID, proposed TID. And then there's also a couple adjacent plus application parcels further south, like right adjacent to the town center parcels on the county map that are also proposed to be included. But like the mayor said, the correct way to do this is really to include the county And that was my oversight for not coming to you all sooner, and I'm sorry for not doing that. But we really would like the county to consider participating with us on this. There's a number of things to talk about that we'll need to work out. You can go to the next slide. So the town has done a land use forecast along with DelDOT and consultant assistance, and it did assume the higher density for all the parcels within the TID area. So that's a good thing because we probably won't need to adjust that very much, but obviously we will want your input on that if you're going to join us and work with us together on this. But basically it's a few thousand new units of residential, and I think it's about 1.5 million or so of non-residential square footage that's expected in the Milton TID area.
Can I ask you a quick question while you're on that slide? So that boundary line is all inside the municipality of Milton?
No, so the, no, it's not.
Okay,
So
well,
it's,
Go back one. That
Well,
one.
my question really is, so you've anticipated where they might envision where growth or annexation areas are in their comprehensive land use plan?
yeah,
And
their
incorporate that in the TID?
yeah, so their comprehensive land use plan includes the map on the right there that has the area marked in red that is basically their annexation area. So the area on that map where there are no colors, that's the town boundary, plus the granary, I think, has been annexed in since then.
So how do you accommodate any possible conflicts with what the county comp plan says and what the municipality's comp plan says on lands that the municipality may envision to be annexed and the county may, I guess, envision that it wouldn't be annexed? So how do you deal with those conflicts?
That would be the task before staff, Mr. Schaefer, should council choose to move in the direction of preparing a TID. So the town has a TID and it assumes annexation based on the growth forecasts. If the county is to join the town and prepare our own TID agreements for those annexation areas, so the situation is right now that if you're annexing into the town and you're in the growth area, you can utilise the TID. If you're not annexing into the town but wish to develop in the growth area, the county doesn't have a TID program. So the question is, would we want to mirror the forecasts that the town has come up with using DelDOT and their consultants, or would we want to undertake our own analysis, or just mirror what Milton already has? So that would be the exercise before staff to compare that to our comprehensive plan. So.
I don't know if this is the right time to jump in and kind of call out the big dog in the room that no one's talking about. But I mean, there's a freight train coming down the track on Route 9, you know, with the development at Cool Spring, which is apparently going through the plus. I think they're even on the docket for planning and zoning. And you know, I noticed that the plan calls for widening Route 9 out to Dairy Farm Road in the 25 to 30 time frame, year 25 to 30, to 4 lanes.
Yeah, and so that would be like a study, so that would be like a planning study for it, basically.
Planning
So then,
study?
Yeah, planning study for it, basically.
Not
to look-
construction?
Not construction.
Oh, my goodness.
And not design.
See, because there's another, you know, and I don't know where it stands as far as application goes, but there's another development, you know, down there across from the Vines or whatever where the Social Security office is in that open field. So you got 2 major developments that are proposed and working their way through the process right now within a few miles of each other from Route 1 over to Harbison that have the potential to contribute probably by themselves as much capacity as existing on the road right now. It's going to double probably the capacity and outstrip the capacity of that road to handle it. And what I'm saying is, I mean, to the casual observer, or certainly from our perspective, it would appear that it would be a good decision to make Route 9 4 lanes from Route 1 at minimum to Gravel Hill Road. And beyond that, Hudson Road, which will border this development is substandard for the amount of traffic that's being proposed. Cave Neck Road is probably going to be substandard because there's not only this development, but additional developments are being proposed along Cave Neck Road. This area is getting ready to blow up, and it looks like, as far as roads go, we're 5 to 10 years behind it, and this is going to really be a problem. And I'm wondering in my own mind, you know, how do I respond to this with my vote when the time comes? You know, because I don't want to create a nightmare, and I can see it coming. I think most people can see it coming.
If they're outside of the TID, then they will do, and they're like generating, you know, that many trips, 50 peak hour or 500 daily trips, then they'll be required to do a traffic impact study. And then at that point, like, they can be required to actually do, like, not just fund improvements, but actually make them themselves. Like, we can require them to make improvements.
Route 1 or at least Dairy Farm Road to, you know, Gravel Hill, as well as Cave Neck, as well as Hudson. I mean, it'd be more money than the developer could potentially have.
And I can speak to that question as well, because it's slightly outside of Ms. Coakley's area of practice. Beyond those two applications that you referred to, which are in the process right now, and staff are preparing on scheduling public hearings for those, beyond that process, there is a coastal corridor study that the staff are working on in conjunction with DelDOT. Right. That corridor, along with other corridors on the east-west movement in the county, are being studied at the moment, and those groups met last year, and there may be some recommendations for those groups and further public meetings on the coastal corridor study last year. So beyond those individual applications, which will have to come forward and present their transportation analysis specific to those applications and the area in the immediate vicinity, there is a longer-term, long-range study for that corridor, which may affect future decision-making. So,
it just seems like the development track is a whole lot faster than the road construction track, and there's going to be a problem. I mean, and I don't know how do we address that. I mean,
Well, I think Councilman Rieley has some valid points. I think what you want to talk about is a much higher level than Sarah's.
probably, but I want to get this on the radar.
You've got it right there.
And
Yeah,
people
sure.
talking about it.
Sure.
I mean, it's, you know, we probably need to get top people in DelDOT downstairs for a heart-to-heart.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think we actually have one scheduled for next week, I think.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we do.
Good. I mean, this is you're talking about two developments that almost by themselves would represent basically a new town almost. You know, and the combined total, it's going to, you know, I don't want it on my watch. I put it that way. So.
Anything else?
No, I got that out there. And
Continue, please.
Could you just go back?
oh, sorry. Yeah, I missed Debbie.
Yeah, so for Milton, like Jamie said, the existing TID agreement, the way it's worded, and also just because Milton has land use jurisdiction over only parcels within the town, is that only parcels that are in the town or annexed to the town before they develop would be able to participate. Also, there's just that, you know, all parcels in the town's growth area may or may not seek to be annexed or approved for annexation. The land use forecast is presently based on the higher potential zoning categories of town zoning. And then if the county joins this effort, the TID requirements would be clearer for everyone. The county would also get more of a say in prioritization of those improvements. And then just, you know, we would need to work out details like who's going to collect the fees and track them, and in relation to building permits being issued, and then also working out like the land use forecast, whether you all want to do your own or modify the one that's been done already, and how that would work.
this is the first time I've seen that kind of projection for Milton. And if what you're saying comes to pass, Milton's going to be the size of Milford. And I'm wondering if 16 and 30 and 5 or Cave Neck Road are going to be anywhere close to being adequate to, there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out and through. You know, what are the plans there?
So, I mean, that's one reason why we want to get started on this TID now, is because we do anticipate.
The TID is great for the area inside the TID, but Allendale to Milton, I mean, and Milton to Route 1, you know, it's.
And Mr. Rieley does have a point that the analysis essentially kind of stops at the TID boundary, and it focuses on the growth within the boundary.
Yeah.
So your request is to consider greater exploration of the impact on those areas outside the TID boundary, which we have the ability to do with DelDOT outside the TID process.
Right, and the TID is going to spend money on stop signs and sidewalks and bike paths, but what we need is a road that can handle the increased level of traffic, you know, even more so. And we need it faster. I mean, I don't know, I know DelDOT's world is, you know, 7 years plus, you know, but this thing's happening a lot faster than what DelDOT seems to be able to, you know, respond to, and that's a concern to me. I know it's not. I ought to be talking to the governor now, right?
The point is well understood as well. There is the CTP process that the county participates in with DelDOT.
Right.
So beyond the TID presentation today, we can certainly explore that as part of the next CTP update with colleagues in DelDOT. So.
And we're always willing to entertain, like, doing additional studies too. Like, I know there's no like MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, on this side of the county, but DelDOT has resources that we can help
and
doing
studies are good. I mean, I live near the bridge that's being built in Millsboro right now, and I think we studied that for 20 plus years. You know, finally getting around to it, but we need to build. I've said enough.
I agree.
I knew you would.
I have a comment or question.
Mrs. Green.
So what is the process for the county to join this effort? We've been invited, it looks like, but what's our process then, or our discussion?
So, like with the Cape Henlopen TID, so if county wish us to explore this effort in conjunction with the town, so the staff would have a look at their numbers first and see if we have any suggestions or changes, or whether we just wish to mirror the forecasts that have been created by the town. We kind of came up with our own methodology with the Roxana TID, so that would be the initial conversation. And then ultimately that would mean bringing it back to County Council for County Council to sign a TID agreement between the county and DelDOT, just like we did with the Henlopen TID. That's if Council wish staff to progress that would take some time to draft, analyse, and potentially there'd be public input as well as part of that process. So, just like we did with the Henlopen TID back in 2020.
So can we get?
That would need to be on an agenda, probably the next meeting or something. It's not on this thing as an agenda to vote on. That needs to be at a later date.
Yeah, and I think this is the council's first time hearing this. Certainly it's my first time understanding more details. Generally speaking, timing-wise, how much time are we, at what point would you want the council to make a decision?
like within the next 2 or 3 months would be great.
Okay, is that something you can work within?
Sure, and absolutely. In the interim, staff can have a look at the numbers, and
Sure.
staff can come back with our analysis. So we can certainly do that. So.
Sure. And we can certainly, if we choose to, put it on an agenda for the next meeting, and just to give them the authority to do that. Not approving it, just investigate it. Okay. Okay.
Sounds good.
Anything else? You've been
Thank you
quite
very much.
informative.
Very good.
Quite informative. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you both.